Yes. Good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Val Bryant, Vice Chair, and I'll be chairing this meeting this evening in the absence of Adam Compton. I'd like to welcome members and officers to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting, and also welcome anyone watching online. Before the meeting starts, I'd like to invite the committee member and scrutiny officer to explain how proceedings will work. Now to undertake a roll call of those attending remotely. Chanel?
Thank you. Can I just confirm that the following people can hear us, please, and are online? Christine Crofts.
Yes, present. Good evening.
Thank you. Rachel Cooper.
Yes, present. Good evening.
Sarah Kingsley.
Good evening, present.
Thank you very much. On to the rules of debate. If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted of your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, your microphone will be made live and will turn red, at which point you can speak. The normal procedure rules in respect of debate and times to speak will apply. Voting. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain buttons on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room, and the results will be visible on the YouTube stream. In the event of a tied vote, the chair will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? Thank you. I'll now hand back to the chair.
Received apologies for absences from Councillors Matt Barnes, Claire Billing and Mick Debenham, Adam Compton and Ian Moody. Mick Debenham is being substituted by Councillor Daniel Allen, and Councillor Ralph Munser is running late. Are there any other apologies? No, thank you. Item 2, minutes on the 7th of November 2023 and the 5th of December 2023. Before I go to the minutes of the 7th of November, there is one change that Councillor Munser is listed in the list of councillors who got dispensation to speak because they were on planning, but in fact it wasn't necessary because he's not on planning. So he'll be deleted from the list. We will take the minutes together. Can I have a proposer, please? And a seconder. Thank you. So I've got Councillor Mason proposing and Councillor Levitt seconding. Any comments on the minutes other than what I've just said? Can we go to the vote, please, Chanel?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 3, notification of other business. There is no other business. Item 4, Chair's announcements. In accordance with Council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available on both Council's YouTube channel as well as on the Council's ModGov site, alongside documents from this meeting. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder of this and speaking rights is set out in the Chair's announcements on the agenda. For the purpose of clarification, 4.8.23a of the Constitution does not apply to this meeting. Therefore, a member may leave the room during the debate and consideration of the item and be able to vote. However, please be mindful of the business on the agenda and whenever possible, leave at the appropriate point in the proceedings. Item 5, public participation. There is no public participation. Item 6, urgent and general exception items. There are none. Item 7, called in items. There are no called in items. Item 8, members' questions. There are no members' questions. Item 9, resolutions of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. James Lovegrove to present.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So just a quick update on this one from me. The draft sustainability SPD was presented to Cabinet on the 12th of December at the extraordinary meeting alongside the referral from OV and Scrutiny, and the item was approved. There was one referral made from this committee in the November meeting to Cabinet, and that was regarding the waste, recycling and street cleansing contract service design. As you'll know, you amended the recommendations to remove the delegation within that. That was accepted by Cabinet, who deferred it to a future meeting. That then went back to the December extraordinary meeting of Cabinet, following which the draft sustainability SPD was approved. The waste recycling and street cleansing contract service designs part 1 and 2 were both approved, with, as I say, the removal of the delegation to the service director, and the leisure management contract award were also approved alongside the referral from this committee. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, James. Do members have any comments or questions? No. Shall we go to debate? No. No debate. Shall we go to the vote? Sorry. Can I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor Wright-Mason. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Allen. Can we go to the vote, please, Chanel?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Fourthly, to update on progress against council delivery plan. Rachel Cooper to present.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the second quarter update on the project's risks and PIs that were first brought to this committee in March 23 and approved by Cabinet for monitoring. It's intended to be an evolving document, so we are responding to feedback on the report format and content. So the report itself, page 26, 8.3, the original due date for each project is now included on Appendix A for transparency, along with the revised due date, and milestone dates are changed following Cabinet approval. Page 27, 8.4, this details all the projects with proposed changes to milestones this quarter and the reasons for the change. So any proposed changes to milestones are highlighted in yellow on the Appendix A report, and any new milestones are coloured green for reference. Page 27, 8.7, at the overview and scrutiny meeting in June, there was a discussion on whether there should be prioritisation within the council delivery plan. So this was linked to the resourcing risk and the fact that milestone dates can slip. So although there are reasons for the slippage, it's reasonable to expect that the higher priority projects should not slip as much. So a prioritisation tool has now been developed, and this is included at Appendix B for information. So each project will be scored against the tool by the relevant executive member and service director. And this list will then be moderated, and the results will form the projects for the 24-25 council delivery plan. So it's hoped having a shorter list should help ensure that the council can be more focused on the key priorities. So page 27, 8.8, following feedback from Cabinet in September, we're developing the council delivery plan so that only relevant milestones are included. So this will be the current year milestones, and then also those prior year milestones that help provide context to the project. So this again will help to reduce the length of the report. All the milestones will still be retained on IdeaGen, the council's risk and performance system, and all councillors can access this. And those milestones that are no longer relevant will just be removed from the report itself. So moving on to Appendix A, the council delivery plan update. Page 32 lists all of the 27 projects and their status. So there's a RAG rating for the project, so red, amber, green, and any change in the project status is also shown. So upward arrow shows an improvement in status, down is a deterioration in status. There's also a risk score for the project. So red, high risk, amber, medium, and green is low risk. And you can also see if any of the risk scores have changed since the last report. So just to explain, the progress bar on each project shows the percentage complete based on the milestones to be completed in this reporting year. So not the whole project. So for example, Churchgate currently showing as 88% complete. Obviously, this will be a multi-year project. So this percentage only relates to what we are hoping to achieve in this reporting year. So completed projects, we've got one project that's been marked as complete. So that's the place narrative for North Hart. So this will now be removed from all future monitoring reports. We then have changes to project status. So 12 projects now have amber status. So this is due to milestone slipping and requested changes to date. So just to draw your attention to a few, page 34, Charnwood House. So the formal marketing exercise for leasing Charnwood House now drawing to a close. It was extended to the end of January to ensure we get as many expressions of interest as possible. The risk level is still assessed as medium, although this could decrease depending on the bids received and the tenant selected. Page 37, the Local Authority Housing Fund. So just to give a verbal update, the Memorandum of Understanding has now been signed and all 3 phase 1 houses are now complete and occupied. Page 39, Museum Storage. Executive members have considered the potential options for the project, but identifying the way forward needs to be considered as part of the wider discussions around ongoing and future budget pressures. So the September 23 Cabinet report was deferred and a revised date hasn't yet been confirmed. So in the meantime, officers continue to manage the risks associated with the current storage facilities. Page 42, the solar PV on leisure centre. So this project is currently on hold. It will now be considered as part of a wider corporate decarbonisation project. So we're applying for a grant to fund a decarbonisation review of our main buildings. And we expect to hear the outcome of the application this month. So no further action will be taken to progress this project until we know whether the application has been successful and we've considered the findings of the review. If we're unsuccessful in obtaining grant funding, then we will have to decide whether to proceed with the originally planned project. So the same applies to the Royston Leisure Centre Solar Thermal project on page 52 as well. And then page 58 shows the risks and PIs that relate to the authority as a whole, and they're not linked to one specific project. The 2 red corporate risks relating to resourcing and cyber risks are reassessed every 3 months to ensure that officers are across any changes. A reminder that all of this data can be viewed in IdeaGem, formerly Pentana. This is the Council's performance and risk software. So the link can be found on the new SharePoint hub along with guest details and a procedure note on how to view the data. In addition, the performance team are currently developing a video guide which will show users how to navigate through the system. And it's expected now that this will be made available prior to the next meeting in March. So finally, just to say it's intended for this report to provide a brief overview of each of the projects and their associated risks. But if members would like to know any further detail on any of the projects, they're able to request this, and this detail will be provided as part of the next monitoring report. It will also allow us to ensure that the relevant executive member or lead officer can be present at the meeting to sort of answer any questions in more detail. That was all I was going to mention if there were any questions.
Any questions for Rachel? Can I just say that Councillor Griffiths arrived at 7:36 and Councillor Munster has also just arrived at 7:46. Welcome. No? Sorry, Councillor Griffiths.
Thank you. I was just looking at the installation of the EV charging points. And it says that the date's been changed to the 31st of October and that we have to complete the installation by October 2024 in order to meet the grant requirements. That's obviously the very latest that we can install. So I was just wondering, is there anything that could be done to support the council in meeting that particular date?
At the moment, I think they're working on the contract with the provider. And then as soon as that's finalised, I think the work will complete. So I'm not sure what additional support could be provided at this stage, but obviously I can offer that question forward in case there's something that can be done that could speed that along.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Any other questions? Councillor Munster.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies for not being in my place at the correct time. I do apologise significantly for that. I do have a few questions on the council performance report, the delivery plan, which, as usual, I'm more than happy to sort of ask the question here and for a response to be prepared in due course and provided to me in the committee if that's something of which members are agreeable to. But could we just sort of first focus on Churchgate and first of all the digital hub? I was just wondering, that's been in operation now since I think it was December, and I was just wondering whether or not we have any idea as to whether we are pleased with the amount of engagement that has been given in this hub or for this hub.
Rachel, is that a question you could?
That's not something I can answer in the meeting, but certainly happy to take that away.
Thank you.
My next question. Well, it was going to be on Churchgate again, because I, like other councillors, attended the all councillor briefing event with the consultants, and I asked a question as to when are we actually going to see a proposal brought forward and have a better idea as to sort of the costings of such a proposal. And I was just wondering whether or not, well, I was given quite an ambiguous response at that briefing, and I was just wondering whether or not we have any information as to when we are to expect such a response on that.
Again, I can take that away and get a response for you on that one.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Could I just now focus on the enterprise strategy? Because I note that we haven't made any progress on that as of yet. But do you know whether or not I would be correct in assuming that the strategy is going to be produced by officers of this authority based on the skills and the expertise contained within the directorate as it stands already, and not farmed out to consultants? And if that isn't the case, would we be able to have a figure as to the cost implication of engaging those consultants for that strategy?
Again, a question to take away. I know that the section has had resourcing issues, which has led to delays in some of these projects being progressed. So if it's in the council's interest to put that externally, then obviously they'll make that decision to do so. But I can ask that question again and also ask about whether the costings of that potential outsourcing can be brought forward as well.
Thank you. Next one.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Someone obviously doesn't want to hear the questions. Could I just follow on from Councillor Griffith on the EV charging? Because this is obviously a really, really significant project. It's a really positive project. We want to get more EV chargers installed throughout the district. And it's great to see that actually the private sector in this instance is stepping up. But could I just ask, do you know how many charging points we can expect to see as part of this scheme?
I don't know that off the top of my head, I'm afraid, but again, the detail of that should be in the specification, so we should be able to draw that out for you.
Thank you. Yes. Councillor Munson, can you make sure there are questions for Rachel?
Indeed, I shall. I shall. I do have just one final question, and that's just on the solar PV for the leisure centres. Obviously, everyone active have now been appointed and awarded the contract for the leisure services. I was just wondering, do you know whether there'll be any impact of this contract award on the project moving forward?
I think you may have missed when Rachel spoke about this.
Forgive me if that was indeed the case.
Yeah, at the moment, the projects for the solar PV and the solar thermal are actually on hold, pending a decarbonisation review. So we've applied for grant funding for that, and we should hear about that in January. And then the future of those projects will be determined following the review.
Okay. Excuse me?
Forgive me, Chair. It may be a bit of a silly question, but could I just confirm that is in fact January 2024 and not January 2025?
Yes, January 24.
The new year. And there is just one final one, forgive me, on waste depots, because obviously we're engaged at the moment in the waste contract and sort of looking at how that's going to be changing when it comes into force in 2025. I just wanted to make an observation here that the dates, forgive me, is that not the...
Oh, no, you can't make an observation. You were asking questions of the officer.
Forgive me, I shall await until the relevant appropriate time.
Because we've got debate.
Forgive me. But thank you very much, Rachel, for answering those questions. And hopefully we'll be able to elicit a little bit more detail in due course. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Levitt?
One very quick one, Rachel. On the enterprise strategy, the scope prepared and due to be signed off at the executive member briefing on the 14th of December. Did that actually happen?
I assume it has. I haven't had any further update since this report was prepared, which was 8th of December. So I'm assuming it has, but I can confirm that.
Thank you. So the recommendations and 2.1 that the committee notes the progress against the council projects as set out in the council delivery plan, Appendix A, including changes to milestones, performance indicators and risk, and makes any recommendations or comments to the Cabinet. 2.2, that the committee identifies any projects which they would like to receive a more detailed update. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Levitt's proposing and Councillor Griffiths is seconding. So shall we go to debate? Councillor Munson.
Thank you. And this is indeed the correct time for me to make my observation. So I just want to reference and comment on the waste depot because, yes, we have been making progress on this priority. I'm very, very pleased to see it. But seems as we have seen dates slip with a variety of other projects which the council is currently engaging in. I think this one cannot be allowed to slip because of the impact that it could have and the knock-on impact it could have on the waste contract and on residents receiving, you know, their usual bin collection, of which they expect this authority to provide that essential statutory service. So that was the only comment that I would wish to add on the record, Chair.
Councillor Levitt.
Chair, just a comment more than anything else. Somewhat disappointing to see the amount of things that have turned yellow and gone down this time again. I understand a lot of them are due to resourcing, so I think the sooner we get this priority and scoring system in place and put the some sort of priority on the delivery plan, the better.
Sorry, I follow that. Can you say it again?
Well, we are intending to score these plans and put them into priority order. And I think due to the number of slippages that we've got and resources, I think it's important that the resources are concentrated in the places we need to. So the sooner we get that priority in place, the better.
I understand that. other comments for the debate? No. Right, shall we go to the vote? Which is to accept the recommendations which I read out, please, Chanel.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 11, the local plan review. Councillor Ian Mantle to present.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope, have all had the opportunity to read the report, which I think is very comprehensive. And I present it to you as the recommendation which the executive member and myself have made, is that in all the circumstances, it seems most appropriate that we should go ahead with a full review, and that we should go ahead under the new regulations rather than trying to shoehorn it in under the current regulations. Clearly, at the moment, there's a lot of items, a lot of discussion at government level about interfering, or sorry, controlling how local authorities perform their plans, create their plans and so on, which makes it even more important that we mark time, not exactly mark time, but we proceed at reasonable speed, and that we do make a very good job of the review. But the recommendation is that we review all of the plans, because there's so many things have changed in the how many years? It's not quite 10 years, but it's not far short since the existing plan was first prepared. And we don't really know what environment we're going to be operating in. We've had a new review, national guidance coming out. We've had various statements from ministers. So I think that the recommendation clearly is that we should first of all get the existing plan finalised, that was all the supplementary planning documents produced, and then that we should proceed as fast as we can with a full review of the existing plan, because so many things will have changed that seems to be the more appropriate way forward. I therefore would commend to you the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Councillor Mantle. Do members have any questions or comments on what Councillor Mantle has said? Councillor Levitt?
Thank you, Chair. Ian, I noticed that there's a number of the strategic sites there in the part of the review process. Have we got any concerns that when it comes, if any of these come to planning before the review is done, that it's going to get cast doubts on us as to the validity of having that site included and the grant and plan permission on it?
I sincerely hope not, that there won't be any issues. All of the strategic sites are progressing, and one of the important changes which is brought about is having master plans for all of them. So they will come to the council as a master plan in the first instance. And it's only after the council has, and that's the whole council, has agreed with the overall strategy and the overall development, they will be able to proceed. And I would hope that that will in its turn mean that they're very unlikely to get rejected at planning, because the work will have been done right up front. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. But I was more concerned with the public perception, and where we have had sites with a lot of public interest in them and a lot of objections to them, that if they once they see that these sites are up for review again, that it's going to cause a great deal of public unrest on these particular sites. And I particularly think of places like east of Luton and north of Stevenage.
Not sure it's within the purview of this meeting. We're talking about planning here. So, and we can't look at planning of overview and scrutiny. Councillor Mantle, your light's on. Have you got something else to say, or it's a legacy hand?
There's only a green light.
Thank you. Councillor Nigel Mason.
Thank you. I suppose to an extent I'm picking up from Councillor David Levitt here slightly. And I think it's a fair point about it's not to discuss planning, but we are here to discuss the merits or otherwise of the local plan review. And I suppose my first thought, looking at some of the sites I'm aware of, is as Councillor Levitt said, anyone who's opposing one of the ones that hasn't already been approved at planning is going to see reopening the local plan as an opportunity to reopen the discussion on those things. That's my only concern.
Express concern. I don't know if Nigel Smith would like to add to that, or Ian.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the point being made. As you say, people sort of casting over it will see that there's a list of policies that say these should be reviewed. I think there's a couple of points. Firstly, the report's quite clear, sections 9.4 and 9.5, that the adopted plan remains the plan until such time as it is replaced, and it is your starting point for decisions in the meantime. And any decision that you need to review the local plan doesn't sort of render that out of date or cast it aside. And I think secondly, in terms of explaining the rationale behind what has been identified, that's not to say that in officers' minds per se, there's doubt about them. It's just given the complexity of them, given the master planning that Councillor Mantle's already referred to, it's obviously relevant to look at those policies and make sure that what they say remains up to date and is the right advice. And all those things are things that will take place through the review process. Obviously, at the moment, this is just a procedural decision on do we sort of pass go and press the button to start that, and all those factors sort of come into play afterwards when you look at the policies and say what needs updating. And it may be a matter of principle, but could be a matter of detail around schools provision, biodiversity, or something else, or it may be nothing at all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Nigel. Any other comments? Councillor Mansell?
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions on this because it is obviously a important matter that needs to be discussed thoroughly. Could I just first ask, contained within paragraph 10.3 on page 75, we're talking about funding here, and it says a growth bid. What exactly is a growth bid? Is that corporate council speak for a budgetary allocation from this authority and not from the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, etc.? Okay, fantastic. Well, in that case, would I be able to ask how much, if we refer this to Cabinet and Cabinet said, yes, we want to go and have a review of the local plan, which I certainly hope they do, how much could this council expect to cost this authority?
Are you talking about the overall
review and the update?
The actual process of the review?
Well, everything from sort of when we actually have a fully completed and up-to-date document.
So you're talking process and in officer times?
Yes,
you're talking about?
Yeah, all in all.
Are we talking, are we talking about amount actually going out the door or notional amount of people's salaries? Because there are two elements. The first, the most important part of the work will, of course, be done by staff who are employed by this authority. It doesn't come at zero cost, obviously, but it's not money going out the door, in addition to what would be anyway by employing the staff.
The only reason I asked...
Just a moment.
Forgive me.
Is it Nigel? Do you want to add to that? No, it's okay. Carry on.
Forgive me. It's just because we've been told that the preparation and the work involved in actually the local plan, identifying the strategic sites, etc., cost 1.6 million. It would just be quite interesting to sort of see how the update compares to the cost and the figure of 1.6 million.
Yes, Nigel confusion. Yeah, as per the report, as you've obviously clearly read the paragraph, but as it says there, with those growth bids subject to the budget next month, we'll have a total budget for the update of just under £800,000. So we don't know yet if that's a final figure. As has been alluded to, there's a lot of changes coming through the system, but we do in broad terms, expect to be able to do the review quite substantially cheaper than the last time out, because as members will be aware, the local plan we've just adopted was this council's first plan for sort of 25, 26 years. So we were effectively starting from scratch, whereas this time around, obviously, we've got quite a firm base to build on. So we'd hope that things like the examination would be far quicker. And certainly the government's intention under their reforms is that examinations should be sort of 6 months rather than the 5 years we endured last time around.
Thank you.
Could I just follow on?
Just a moment.
For,
See if anybody else is waiting. Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just sort of carry on from that, because it's sort of almost quite fitting that we had the council delivery plan prior to this, because obviously there are issues associated with resourcing across the council at the moment. I'm sure planning and strategic planning is not immune to those challenges. And with that, then sort of if we do have a gap in capacity, then we sort of, go and engage consultants. And I was just sort of wondering, are we confident that we have the capacity within the department at this moment in time to carry out what is going to be a substantial piece of work?
Thank you, Nigel.
Yes, we are at this point as best we can. Obviously, with a local plan, given the complexity, inevitably some parts of it will be outsourced because although there are obviously a number of qualified plans in the building, there are some sort of real specialisms that you have to get into, be that landscape or viability of development or detailed number crunching around population. So an element of it will go out. Yeah, we have the staff structure in place to be able to accommodate that. And again, the budget next month, there's some further growth bits in there around staff to make sure that we have got that capacity in place.
Thank you. Ian Fullstone, did you want to add anything?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just Councillor Mansur, as you'll be aware from the previous 2 years of budget rounds you've been party to and the workshops that are held with each of the parties, I've put forward a number of growth bids, both to deliver the plan and more importantly, as you pick up for the staffing resources. So I'd be grateful for your support when it goes to full council, because if you have a look at the cabinet papers, you'll see then there's another tranche of money to kind of support taking the project forward, as well as, more importantly, staff resources as well. And as Nigel says, the structure is one thing. Finding the personnel is incredibly difficult in this climate. And so sometimes we have to be a bit, not creative, but we have to kind of run parallel and sometimes use a consultants and a mixture of staff and consultants. But with the shadow exec and the exec in the deputy, we keep them constantly updated as to where we are with staff and resources.
Something totally different.
It is.
Okay, one more.
The local plan obviously sort of had a life expectancy from 2011 to 2031. We're now in 2024. How long can we expect this sort of update to take and for it to be implemented? Will it be before, hopefully, the expiry of the lifetime of that plan?
Okay. So we are, excuse me, we are expecting to hopefully have examination by 2027, with a view to an extension to 2046, I believe it was. So it will have a 15-year window as per the requirements within MPPF.
Thank you. Shall I read the recommendations? Yes. Sorry?
They are referrals to cabinet.
Nice. The recommendations that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommends to Cabinet. 1, that Cabinet note the results of the review of the policies of the NHLP set out in Appendix A and the PAS toolkit in Appendix B. 2, that Cabinet agrees a full review and update of the NHLP, like I said, I'd rather say the whole thing, is undertaken. 3, that work commences during 2024-2025 and updating the technical studies needed to provide a robust evidence base to inform an update of the local plan and early community engagement to take place. 4, there's a further report on the detailed scope of the update and the timetable for its preparation, submission and examination is prepared at the earliest opportunity once the implications of the new national planning policy framework are better understood and that the statutory framework required to implement the reforms has been approved. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Levitt to propose, seconder. Councillor Griffiths. Thank you. Shall we have the debate? Councillor Levitt?
Thank you, Chair. When we put the original local plan together, we did anticipate an early review. What we didn't anticipate was the amount of time that the inspector was going to take to actually get us to the point of being able to sign it off. So, yes, this is important that we do this now because so much has changed, even just in the time that the inspector took to make his mind up. So I think it's high time that we got this moving. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Allen?
I voted against the local plan when it came through, and I feel this review will be a very, very good thing for the people of North Hertfordshire. So I'm looking forward to seeing it go through.
Councillor Munster?
Thank you, Chair. As ever, I do have a few comments because when Council adopted the local plan in November 2022, many councillors, including myself, I might add, raised concerns about a number of different aspects of the plan. And I know that many were reassured by the fact that there would be a review into the suitability of this. So I therefore strongly welcome the recommendations that there will be a full review and an update of the plan and that will take place. And I believe that this course of action is in the best interest of the district and our communities within it. There are, as ever, a few points I wish to raise because the report correctly identifies that there have been a number of legislative and policy changes. I thought this was debate, Chair.
Well, could you a couple more sentences? It's debate. It's supposed to be more than one person.
Okay, well, there have been a number of legislative and policy changes since the adoption of this plan, and I think that we can all agree that the national conversation surrounding planning and planning reform has certainly intensified, and particularly with the fact that there is, of course, a general election on the horizon, it is going to be quite likely that there is more reform in the pipeline yet. And these factors, coupled with the fact that certain legislative provisions, as identified with the report, are yet to be enacted, means that revisiting the plan and taking into account these changes is the most logical and sensible course of action. Thank you. I believe I have 5 minutes of debate, if I'm not correct. If I'm not
mistaken, you're not finished. Okay.
Under the Constitution.
Carry on.
Because if truth be told, the local plan, only having been adopted in 2020 with a start date of 2011 and an end date of 2031, there are certainly some who would argue that it was outdated as soon as, in fact, it was adopted. And a concern that I raised within the debate was that the infrastructure to support new developments and mitigate the impact of those developments on local residents who already reside in the communities, you know, the schools, the GP surgeries, the shops, the transport infrastructure, are often built as an afterthought as opposed to actually being built concurrently with the development. And the reforms instituted by the government mean that developers are going to be now under the strongest possible obligation to deliver that vital local infrastructure. And I hope in the update, this is going to be an area which is given due consideration. I also want to comment on the changes surrounding design policy. It is relevant to the debate, and I do believe I have 5 minutes, and there are certain aspects and comments I wish to get on the record so that it is in the public domain and the Cabinet has sight of that, Chair.
I was going to make a comment.
Forgive me.
And now I've forgotten what it is, but I was going to make a comment from the planning point of view. And
well, I'm aware that multiple members of this committee are on the planning committee. Alas, that is not my position that I'm on, but it's certainly sort of an outsider's insights and possibly. But sort of going back to the changes on design, because this is an important change, and it's one that really does need to be considered in the update, because we have to remember that developers are not just building houses. They are building places and communities, and design should reflect this. And I'm of the firm belief that new development should be beautiful, it should be characterful, it should add and enhance the place of which it is situated in. And we talk an awful lot about sustainability. I know it's a shame Councillor Brown is not here, because I know how passionate she is about sustainability, but we also need to talk about longevity. We need to be building to last not just for 30 years, but to last for a good period longer. And I fear that in the case of when looking at certain developments within the district which have already been either proposed or have been built, that may not have been an overriding principle. And then I just sort of want to talk about the capacity, because as Mr. Falston rightly said, there is money of which has been allocated, there is money of which is going to be allocated.
I'm going to cut you off there
Hopefully.
because I have
Am I out
got
of
other
time?
councillors waiting. Okay, thank you. Councillor Allen, please.
Actually, I've already spoken, so I'll stop. But I tried to keep my statement down to a statement, not a speech, as opposed to a debate.
And there was quite a lot of it was speech, I must say. Councillor Griffiths.
I was just going to say, just referring earlier to Councillor Levitt's point, is that we at the time didn't know how long the review was going to take. And part of the turmoil from the national picture has contributed to no doubt some more delays as well, with potential reforms further down the pipeline, as Councillor Munsell also suggests as well, which is why we really need to get on with the local plan review to make sure it's as airtight as possible, and it needs to be passed as quickly as possible as well. Thank you.
That's a good note to end on, given that we are about to have the vote. Chanel, have the vote, please.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 12, 2024 to 2028 Marketing and Communication Strategy, presented by Councillor Elizabeth Dennis.
Shall wait. There we go. Thank you very much, Chair. Apologies, colleagues. I have yet again got a cold, the joys of winter. So I will do my best for you this evening. So I think the paper that's before you is relatively self-explanatory, and there's quite a detailed appendix that sits alongside this. However, I think that it's important that we note from the get-go that it's no secret budgets are tight and councils across the country are having to make tough decisions in a number of areas. I've spent my day wrapped up in a local government association finance conference, so my head has very, very much been in the detail of local government finance. Against that backdrop, then, how we communicate with our communities and how we also engage with stakeholders and possible partners that we'll be working with to deliver key outputs for this area is absolutely critical. And sort of on that point, I think it's quite important that we therefore reflect on how we're positioning ourselves, how we're presenting, and how we are effectively communicating with everybody that we're looking to influence within this local authority area. That's why we're sort of shifting the communications approach from that pure narrative storytelling we have done type approach towards a more marketing based way of doing business. This effectively delivers those messages earlier in the process, and data and analysis from marketing and communication specialists shows that this does enable people to get involved at an earlier stage in various projects. And when that does happen, Dansley, a communications specialist, has pointed out that you tend to get an 82% success rate. The later on you leave your communications, your engagement, your marketing of a project, the lower the chances of success, the lower the level of buy-in from various partners as well. So that's kind of the background, some of the technical side of things that I'm sure Christine can unpack more if colleagues have questions as to why we're taking this slightly different shift in approach. A number of you will have also heard me say over the years that we are all influencers. And that is never more true than in a very digital age. Every single councillor, everyone that works for this authority is able to influence, is able to communicate, is able to deliver and send a message. Communications isn't just down to the communications team within a local authority, it's actually down to every single member within this local authority. And what this strategy does is effectively recognize that. It takes our existing model and builds upon it and incorporates learnings as well from other local authorities who've been doing this for longer than we have, but also picks things up from the private sector as well. So we are taking communications and marketing best practice from across the national picture. Now, we've got three key strands to what we're trying to do within the strategy. We are taking very clearly a people first approach. In this space, what we're doing with that, as you will have seen already from some of the visuals that have been going out on our social media, is featuring actual people, our staff, for example, when we're doing recruitment, because we know that that makes it human when we're communicating with people, and it makes it easier for people to engage with the posts and what we're saying. We've also got that campaign driven element of our engagement as well. You'll notice things like the Climate Hive and the work that we're doing around the bee corridors and the engagement opportunities that there are there for people to get in touch digitally. There's the hub that Councillor Munser referred to earlier for Churchgate as well. And we will also come on later in this meeting to our changing approach to how we consult and engage with residents to get feedback about the services that this authority provides. There is reference as well to a digital first approach and taking a cross-channel approach. Now, just because the strategy says digital first doesn't actually mean that digital is the only way that we're going to be communicating with people. You'll see actually from 6.0 of the appendix that sets out the strategy that we are still working and engaging via traditional print media and other ways of getting in touch with our residents and partners. It's just that there is a shift in the communications landscape to the way that individuals choose to access information. So we're making sure that we are fully utilizing as many of the emerging digital platforms as well as established media forms when we are engaging and positioning ourselves. As I said, this isn't just about our unique story anymore and what we've done. It's about how we promote and we raise awareness of what our vision, our priorities, our key themes are, and how we engage meaningfully with people and partners across the district and beyond in order, in a mode that they prefer, in order to deliver success. And those measures of success and some of the measurable outputs are set out in 3.3 of the appendix. And of course, we are going to continue to make sure that we have a quarterly and annual review of our communications outputs to make sure that we are hitting those key metrics, that we're delivering that year-on-year increase in engagement across multiple platforms, but also that we are actually listening to the feedback that we receive. And we've got an agile and adaptable marketing and communication strategy that does inform, inspire, involve and interact with all of our key stakeholders, whether it's residents, councillors, neighbouring authorities, our key partners and stakeholders that deliver contracts, and also people that we're looking to attract and get to do more business within the district. So I think, colleagues, that this is quite a robust communication strategy. It's angling and positioning ourselves slightly differently to how we have done in the past, simply because local government cannot afford to keep on doing what local government has always done. And I think it is time that we really do start to think about how we can be really effective to deliver positive engagement that is going to support everybody engaging to deliver the best opportunities for the district. So I'm quite happy to recommend this report, and we'll welcome your feedback, colleagues.
Dennis, do members have any comments or questions? Councillor Allen.
Just one, going through the recommendation 14, environmental implications. It says there are no known environmental implications or requirements that apply for 2024-28 marketing and communication strategy. I would question that. Is there no printing? Is there no inks? Is there no paper? Is there no type of recycling? Is there no way of looking at the way the paper and print media is used?
Councillor Dennis?
Thank you. I think that that's a valid question. I think that this has run through the internal guidance and mechanism for officers. So what I can do is ask that officers review the environmental impacts and come back with anything. Obviously, for the strategy itself, other than what's happened in terms of, say, our server resource, the impact that that has on the environment, a lot of technical stuff that sits in the background. I don't think that there is going to be much beyond that, because obviously what we're looking at here is the strategy itself. Any outputs, any digital products, any print products that might happen as a result of this. Obviously, we don't know what they're going to look like at this point in time, and that would have to be considered appropriately by ourselves and partners in line with environmental commitments and balancing that applies.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Councillor Munster?
Thank you. It is a very comprehensive strategy, and obviously it lasts for 4 years. And I was just wondering whether or not you'd be able to go into a little bit more detail as to how, at the end, at 2028, how we measure whether or not this strategy has been successful, and whether or not we are going to continually review this strategy to actually make sure that it is relevant and that it is actually achieving what it's supposed to.
Thank you. Councillor Dennis?
Thank you. There we go. Shall wait. There we go. Thank you very much. Absolutely. As I said, it is an agile, flexible document. It has to be, because that's how communications and marketing are. We don't know what Twitter, X, Threads. I don't know what new digital product there's going to be that we need to start to engage with. Are we going to look at TikTok, for example? And how do you measure the impacts and success? Well, we've got sort of some of the key things that we would look to measure indicated and highlighted in there. Other tools and mechanisms that we've got are obviously those temperature checks that we can do through our engagement and resident surveys and see what people think and make sure that we are doing that you said, we heard type exercise. And I think the success of a strategy like this is very much going to be measured by those quarterly, those annual reviews, those temperature checks, and just going, have we attracted inward investment? Was that linked to the search engine optimization work that we've done in this particular space? Have we had more people apply for jobs as a direct result of our social media advertising, etc.? So it's going to be those kinds of almost touchy-feely things. We have got some of the hard KPIs in this strategy that we can look at. And then, like I said, it will evolve. It will be agile over the 4 years. We will look back and it will be a case of, well, we succeeded. This is good. This is bad. This is where we're going to go. This is where we're going to move forward. And it'll be a living document, I think.
Thank you. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question, really. When they prepared this update to the community, to the strategy, did they take into account the relevant points from the community survey relating to communications?
The two reports that we've got on the agenda tonight on comms were prepared alongside each other, and I've referenced the community survey a couple of times in talking about this item. So I think you can make your own inferences from that.
Thank you. Councillor Wright-Mason.
Yeah, on page 164, where it says lack of comms promoting 2 of our 4 corporate themes. I assume it doesn't mean we're going to use the phrase corporate themes when talking to residents.
You don't like that then?
No. I think we would use appropriate language for the audience that we are seeking to engage with.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. So the recommendation that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee recommends that Cabinet approves the 2024 to 2028 marketing and communications strategy. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Griffiths and a seconder. Councillor Mason. Thank you. And shall we go to debate? We've all said everything already. I think so. Yes. Shall we then go to the vote? Please, Chanel.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. And item 13, community survey results, March to June 2023. Councillor Elizabeth Dennis to present.
Lovely. Yes. Thank you, colleagues. Bear with me a minute. There we go. Right. So some of you will be familiar with how we used to conduct the district-wide survey. This was carried out every 2 years, and it was a telephone-based exercise where various residents, according to demographic weighting, were contacted across the district by phone and had a lovely chat with interviewers, and we captured the data that way. This year, we are doing something different. I will reference again pressures on local government finance, but also the need to try and move with the times and find easier alternative ways to ensure that we are engaging as many and as diverse a resident base across the district as we possibly can. So against that backdrop, we have our first ever digital survey, which has delivered wider engagement. What this also has enabled us to do is to move away from that 2-year checkpoint and have something that's a bit more regular so that we're able to get that temperature check more frequently from our residents. So we have 6 monthly snapshots. Therefore, the output and the data and the results from this survey effectively give us our new baseline data. They are not going to be the same type of results as we get from those phone conversations, because what we're dealing with here isn't a resident that's been warmed up and built rapport through a telephone conversation with a particular agent. We're dealing with people that are interacting purely to questions that pop up coldly on a screen. So what we get is that raw, visceral reaction, whereas something that might be tempered through the connection that somebody starts to build with an interviewer. Some of the positives for me that have come out of this survey are the increased response from our younger demographics. Colleagues may well ask for the specific breakdown, because that 16 to 34 bracket is, for those of us that are in it or have been in it recently, quite a large age grouping. I don't have that data drilled down to this level at this meeting. However, if colleagues want to understand more about it, I'm sure that can be obtained. So headline figures to pick out, because you've all read the papers. 74% of people living within the district are satisfied with life here, and 67% would recommend living here to a friend. So I think that is quite a positive for us to take forward. Clearly, there is still more work that we could do to make North Herts an even greater place for people to live. Trust in the council is also 5% higher than the UK government trust level at the moment, although I'm not certain that's anything to shout about. So again, I'd like us to try and increase on that metric. 43% of people are broadly satisfied with how we do business. A quarter of people think that we provide value for money. So that's quite a low measure. However, when we drill down into some of those open-ended questions that we've got, we can see that there's a little bit of resident confusion about what services this council actually provides versus the county council. So there are lessons and learnings that we can take away from these results and from those open-ended comments that we wouldn't have captured through the telephone survey in the past. And what we can see is that this marketing strategy that we've just discussed and positioning and explaining and communicating effectively with people is really, really important. There are clear challenges on issues that fall within the waste portfolio area. There's a perception around the cleanliness of our streets and that sort of service provision. So there's a challenge there, and I think that has already been taken away by officers in the relevant area to begin working on. A note for councillors in the room this evening, though, only 33% of residents say that they know what we do. reference back to the point about everybody's an influencer and making sure that we are getting out there and serving our communities as best we possibly can. 84% of our residents think that we could listen more. So the question that I would have is, does this indicate that although we're surveying residents a lot more than we have done at any point in the past, there might be a perception that residents don't feel that they're being heard? So query, do we need to work to deliver more of the "you said, we did" type messaging and make sure that residents do see themselves genuinely at the heart of all the decisions that we're making, and that when they are filling out these surveys, when they're engaging with us via these temperature checks and this revised form of a district-wide survey, are we actually demonstrating that we are taking that feedback seriously? Are we putting that into action? The top areas of focus that we've captured do show that we need to communicate very clearly the work areas that we cover as an authority. But there's also potentially, I think, as Councillor Munster indicated when we were considering the local plan review this evening, an indication that our systems joined up between ourselves, between county council. Are we making sure that everything is functioning in a way that supports and puts our residents genuinely first? The outputs from Royston, I have noted around feeling disconnected compared with the rest of the district, and there is engagement effort, members will have noted from the report, that is planned in order to ensure that our residents across the district feel part of North Hearts, and not that effort is focused in one town or another and other places are left outside of our sphere of concern and action when we're planning work. I think also paragraph 8.5.4 should be, I think I'd like to note that Cabinet should see the results of these surveys going forward. However, do we need to see them at a Cabinet meeting and have that discussion, or actually is this something that we constantly need to be reporting on? We need to be aware of through informal mechanisms, at executive member briefings with officers, etc. So, colleagues, that's a sort of very high level bit of additional detail to the reports and papers, and I hope that it's demonstrated that we have these results. There is a reason why there is a difference in the outputs and the data in response to certain types of question compared to previous surveys of this nature, but that has been considered, and the relevant areas, the relevant teams have already taken this feedback on board and are already taking steps and actions to move forward to really improve not just resident perception, actually resident experience. And we will continue with these temperature checks, etc., moving forward to ensure that we are engaging, not just engaging, we're actually responding and hearing what our residents are saying back to us. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Councillor Griffiths, would you like to start?
Thank you very much. I've got a couple questions. What you probably won't be able to tell us the cost of the survey compared to the phone interviews, but was it either comparable or was it better value for money?
Dennis?
I think I can recall this, but I think I also want to double check with Christine so that I don't mislead the committee.
Thanks, Councillor Dennis. Yeah, the cost is £6,000 per year, and that's for 2 surveys, whereas the district-wide phone survey was £17,900, and that was for 1 survey every other year.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Griffiths? Do you have another question?
There we go. Yes, it does. Thank you very much. So obviously, yes, therefore it is better value for money. So therefore, I also assume that there was also time gained from carrying out the survey compared to the length of time taken out to carry the phone survey.
So both of the surveys are provided by external partners. The phone survey, I don't recall the company that used to provide it, but it wasn't conducted in-house. The digital survey has been provided through Zen City. So there's no internal officer time on this. It's part of those external contracts. The internal officer time obviously comes down to compiling the reports, analysing the results, feeding and linking through, which, you know, largely is going to be the same no matter what type of survey you're engaging with.
Does that answer your questions?
Yes, I do have another question though. That's okay.
Go on then.
Thank you. So was I couldn't read it in the report. I might have missed it. Was the survey advertised or was it sent out to the council mailing list?
I believe that was included in the council emails that are pushed out, but I will double check with Christine all of the different ways that this survey was pushed to residents.
So essentially, Zen City, with the software that they have, they piggyback on the software within Google and also Facebook as well. And the ads go out independently, so they're not sent via ourselves. They actually go out independently to make sure that we reach a representative sample of the district. We did promote it ourselves as well, more to get the open-ended answers so that we could get a really good feel for why people were giving the answers that they were giving. But the actual scores and the information that you can see there was just pushed out through Zen City independently to make sure that we got a representative sample.
Thank you, Christine. Oops. Thank you. Councillor Mason.
Thank you. Apologies if the answer to this is in here somewhere, but I can't find it. I was interested in the weighting of some of the questions or some of the respondents or something. So something like, how satisfied are you with the waste service? That 62% looks really good because pretty much everybody uses the waste service. But something like, how satisfied are you with the leisure facilities? It strikes me, do we ask people to actually use it? Colleagues may be shocked to know I probably don't set foot in the leisure centre or the swimming pool outside of when they're counting votes. So I could give you a very good positive response of them. But the serious point being, of course, lots of people don't use them. So therefore that, you know, it struck me because that one is say lower, it's 47%. But do we ask the people who use it or do we just ask everyone? The same with car parks. If you don't have a car, you're not going to be using the car park. So I'm not quite sure what view you'd have of them.
Councillor Dennis.
And I'm a nerd because I used to work for a market research company. Sorry.
I have a feeling that this was somewhere in the papers and it's one of those things that's slipped my mind. We have had a conversation around making sure that people that use services are responding to those satisfaction questions about those specific services. On this occasion, Christine, did we make sure that we were doing that split?
We didn't on this occasion. Sorry, I've answered a bit too quickly there. We didn't on this occasion. I suppose this was because it was the first time that we've done this and also the first time that Zen City have done this in the UK. It was very much a learning. So that's definitely one of the learnings for the next round, that basically you can't move on to answer that question unless you've said, yes, I definitely use those services.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Levitt.
Thank you. I understand this is a different way of doing this survey to what we used to do, but when we used to get the results, it used to list the the 4 previous surveys as well, so we could see the change within that. Is there any intention to continue doing that? So when we get more of this type, we will continue to do that. And just as an aside, the people who used to do opinion research services who we used to use before, and they did do a thing is, are you the user of the service, and categorize it like that. So I think that is important to include this in future.
Councillor Dennis.
Yeah, thank you very much. As I said, yes, this is effectively year 1. So this is creating our data benchmark moving forwards.
Thank you, Councillor Mansell.
Chair. There's obviously an awful lot of data here to digest, and it's really good that actually we have these data points so that we're able to sort of pinpoint where we do need to see an improvement. But I just want to focus on the 21% of residents that agree that NHDC involves, consults and engages with the local community. And I heard you earlier, Councillor Dennis, talking about action plans and how directorates have received this data and that they're now going to sort of put in place proposals to obviously improve those figures where they are lacking. I was just wondering, with reference to consultations, and I have in my mind at the back the consultation on the waste contract, which wasn't incredibly clear and was quite ambiguous. And I was just sort of wondering, can we ensure in the future that it is clear on what the council is actually consulting on? And could I just ask, what methods are we going to use in the future based and taking into account the data presented to us tonight to consult the public? Because this is a local authority, it is a public authority. It is vital that actually we have the views and the opinions of members of the public. We as elected representatives can do that, but equally direct public engagement is something which is really important when we're talking about things like waste contracts, leisure contracts, etc., local plans.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, Councillor Munster. I think that this really does highlight the link between this item and the previous item. So yes, we absolutely do need to be clear on and make sure that people understand what we're consulting on and why, and that, you know, they understand and appreciate where that information is going to go and how it's going to be utilized. I think that the result that we've got in this particular area really strongly indicates that, despite the fact that we are going out to people a lot more frequently now and asking their opinion, they still don't feel heard. So that is key feedback to take away. And I think that's something that the marketing and communication strategy is going to help us with. And equally on ensuring that we are engaging and consulting using the correct methods, reference back to the previous item and all the different ways that we can look at engaging with people and making sure that they're heard, that were listed in there, plus a number of items that probably exist at the moment that aren't in there, but we're aware of on the periphery. And also that horizon scanning piece that I referenced about making sure that as new modes of communication come on stream, we're utilizing those effectively to reach and to engage people too.
Thank you. Right, can I go to the recommendation that the Review and Scrutiny Committee recommends that the Cabinet comments on and notes the key findings and observations from round one of the community survey and comment on the approach to future surveys as detailed in section 8.5. Can I have a proposer, please? Proposer? Councillor Allen, a seconder. Councillor Griffiths. Shall we go to debate? Councillor Levitt.
Thank you. I've got a number of points I wish to raise. Some of them have actually been covered by Councillor Dennis's introduction, actually, so I can knock a couple off. One of the things that you did mention, though, was the measures in 8.5.4 about bringing the report, whether it should be brought to Cabinet or not. This is a measure of performance, and it is a measure of the effectiveness of the way the administration's policies are working and how they're being perceived by the public. So I do think it is important that it is regularly reported to Cabinet and not just sort of published somewhere, and attention is brought to it, and it is a good performance measure. Now that brings me to my main point, which is, yes, I understand this is a new baseline, it's a new different way of doing things, and we have got a number of questions that are different. I had some concerns about the relevance to users and that, but that's already been answered and will be addressed in the future, so I'm happy with that one. But some of the questions in this version are exactly the same as the ones that we had previously. So we have got a comparator between where we are now and where we are last time. Now, the last one I could find that was that had everything covered was the 2019 one, which is when we lost the control of the council and a new one came over. And some of the figures in particular have given me great concern that we're seeing at the moment. If we look at the one about the way that the council runs things, in 2019, 73% of the people were happy with the way council run things. Now it's 43%.
So can I just stop you there? It's the point, I thought the point you were getting to was whether we could actually backdate the baseline. Are you saying that, in fact, for some questions, you would be able to do that, but others wouldn't? Is that the question you put in?
That's the point I'm trying to make, Chair, that some of
Is that
those...
the question you want to put to
the questions that the things I'm going to say are, some of them are different, so I won't touch on those, but some of them ask exactly the same questions in the same way. And so we have a comparative data between 2019 and now, and some of those figures raise concerns. And that's the point of the debate I'm trying to make, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, I said that. I don't think we did, that I suggest we go to Councillor Dennis without the detail.
Well, the whole point of overview and scrutiny, Chair, is that we scrutinise the way the council works, operates, and the way it delivers its services. And that's what I'm trying to do, and trying to get an explanation of why some of these figures have dramatically changed.
I see your point now. You want the explanation.
Okay. So the way the council run things has gone from 73% in 2019 to 43%. A place to live, is it a good place to live, has gone from 91% to, can't read my own writing here, 74%.
74% says
Yep.
yes.
Involves, consults, and engages with the local community. 48% in 2019, 21% now. Halved, more than half. Makes an effort to find out what local people want. 42% in 2019, 19% now. Working to make the area cleaner and greener. 61% in 2019, 31% now. Value for money, 48% in 2017, because the figure didn't appear in the 2019 one, 25% now. Again, a significant drop.
2022. And so they would seem to be the relevant figures in my mind. That's the first point I want to make. The second point is, I think it was in the chair's briefing today, it was explained to myself and Adam the differences in approach to the surveys, which meant the figures were always higher when it's a phone survey. Now, I don't think I'm making that up, but Christine might want to comment on that.
Chair, I am trying to make a point.
Okay.
A political point.
But are you listening to have you listened to my point?
It is a political point, and it is a valid political point in a way that the administration has changed. It may not be the administration's fault, but it is something that needs to be flagged up.
But Councillor Levitt, this is overview and scrutiny.
Yes, and I'm scrutinising.
And we've got a phone survey from 2022, which we could be looking at the figures at to make comparisons, and looking at the difference generally in marketing findings in the numbers of people, percentages which are higher.
I think I point out,
and I don't think this is the place to make a political point about 2019.
Chair, the point I'm trying to make is this is the survey. The 2019 was the one that had the nearest questions. The 2022 questions were slightly different. If I may continue, Chair, to scrutinise the performance,
I think I'm questioning what you're scrutinising at the point, and at the fact that you're not accepting what the chair is saying, because
this is an overview and scrutiny committee, Chair.
Can I finish my sentence then, as chair?
Certainly.
That I appreciate what you're bringing to our attention. My concern is that, first of all, we're talking about a particular year rather than the latest survey, and that the examples you're giving, you are actually giving a political nuance to in overview and scrutiny. And I don't think that this is the right place to do that. And that's the point I'm making.
If this is
Now,
not
I'm
the
happy
right
to
po-
give you a couple of minutes to sum up, but I don't want to continue with these examples, okay? But I'm quite happy to give you a couple of minutes to sum up what you're saying.
In that case, Chair, I shall go no further. I have further figures I wish to say, but this is an overview and scrutiny committee. I'm trying to do the job of what this committee is supposed to do and be a critical friend to the administration. I'm being denied that choice by yourself, Chair, and as Councillor Munson was earlier. Therefore, Chair, I intend to make a formal complaint about the conduct of this meeting and the way this meeting has been conducted. I will say no more and take no further part in this debate or this committee tonight, but I will remain here to listen to it.
Thank you, Councillor Levitt. I assume you will follow the correct procedures to make the complaint, and you will be liaising with Democratic Services to do that. It's very unfortunate you feel that way, but we need to continue with the meeting, where we are in the debate and we have other councillors waiting to speak. Councillor Wright Mason.
I do have to say, I think Councillor Levitt did make some fairly reasonable points in terms of comparing these results to previous years. What I'd be interested to know is how these changes track with other local authorities across the country, about whether it's just a general people are feeling that their quality of life is worse in general, so that is reflected in their responses to surveys like this, or whether North Hart specifically has gone down more than others. I would be interested in that.
Do you wish to answer? Councillor Munson?
Thank you, Chair. I will keep my comments brief on this because the headline of this agenda item and the data of which we've been presented this evening is effectively that residents are satisfied with the district and the environment of which they live in, less so when it comes to the provision of services provided by this council. And I'm pleased to see and to hear from Councillor Dennis that we are going to be taking on board the views and the opinions of residents shared within this survey. I do fear, however, that there are certain areas of which, for example, the provision of waste collection and the discussions surrounding the questions surrounding whether or not this authority provides value for money, that actually, because of the changes in policy of which are going to be implemented in the next few years, that data set is not actually going to increase, it is going to decrease. People are going to become more dissatisfied with the council, not more satisfied. And it's very, very interesting, the information of which we've been given, particularly surrounding the views of residents and what the council provide. We note that 31 of the respondents said that one of their top priorities, their top areas of improvement for this council was improving our roads. Now, that's obviously something that is provided for by the county council. It is certainly interesting, and I think it alludes possibly to the fact that we do need to maybe have a discussion about how local government is provided in Hertfordshire in order to make it more accessible, in order to make it more effective and efficient. But I will just end on this. I do agree with my friend Councillor Levitt. I do think that the data sets from previous years, no matter whether or not it's from 2022, and if we have that data, Chair, I'm more than happy for that to be shared with the meeting. But data is data at the end of the day. And, you know, it is important that we are able to compare and contrast from previous years, no matter how far back. But I will leave and end my comments on that front there.
Councillor Nigel Mason.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just sort of reflecting on some of the questions that Councillor Levitt was making. And I think he's right. We should always look back and compare where we can to see whether we're going forwards, we're going backwards, and whatever. It's always difficult with research, because if you're not careful, you're comparing apples with pears, as they say, and it's difficult to make sure you're comparing the same thing, and that is a concern here. But I think it is important that we compare, but it's also important that we look at why, and not just say, oh, well, are they less happy with this now than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago? And I'm just mindful, as I say, I don't want to stray into kicking up a big political debate again, but I'm just mindful we sat here just before Christmas and had a budget thing, and I posed a question about funding and found our funding had gone down by 33% in real terms over a period of time. And I'm guessing if we are going to start having those questions about drilling down about our certain services or certain parts of the council services more or less popular, or more or less satisfaction, we also need to look at whether it's because there's no money for it.
Any other comments on the debate? Shall we go to the vote, which is on the recommendations I read out before? Please, Chanel.
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. Item 14, overview of the Scrutiny Committee work programme. James Lovegrove to present, please.
Thank you, Chair. So as usual, the work programme has been compiled from the annual report cycle, the forward plan and actions from the LGA peer review, as well as conversations with the Chair, Vice Chair and relevant officers that have fed into that. The most recent version of the forward plan, the one included in the agenda pack, was from before Christmas. There was one published on Friday, just gone the 5th of January, ahead of the February Cabinet meeting. There's a few items that I'll come on to in a second which have been added, but if there's anything else that hasn't been added that you would like added, please let me or the Chair know. So moving on to the work programme itself, we've got the crime and disorder matters item scheduled for the 29th of January meeting. Herts Police representatives will be here in attendance to provide members with an update on hate crime in North Herts, as requested by the Chair. We've also sent an invitation to Settle to attend on the 29th of January, again at the Chair's request, to provide an update on their work in North Herts, including sort of how they've dealt with complaints and any changes they're making based on the renter reform bill. Additional items on the 29th of Jan are also looking at the empty home strategy and the council tax premiums for empty and second homes item. And finally, on the 29th of January, we hope to have the Chair's reports for both call to accounts on the Lord Lister Hotel and the Harkness Court project for consideration. Also, final thing, the Appendix C is the LGA peer review. I thought I'd just give a little bit more of an update on that. So in terms of the scrutiny officer at point 4, the role is out for advertisement at the moment, and that will close on Monday, the 15th of January. After an unsuccessful first round of recruitment. This time we are utilising the Essex County Council Jobs Board, which promotes it further and wider than we do. And interviews are due to take place on Wednesday, the 31st of January. In terms of complete actions on the LGA peer review, I've got a couple that I've sort of marked as complete. 12.12, the call to account prep session. So that will be made a standard practice across any call to account or similar standalone process. Point 18, with the minutes that should reflect the meeting, I've noted here that all actions and requests made at the meeting by committee members are captured and reported in the resolutions report already. And point 21, cabinet reasons for rejection of referrals by cabinet, they would be provided within the resolutions report at meetings alongside any reasons for it. Finally, so the outstanding items sort of fall into 3 categories. There's several that will come post May 2024 elections. So that's point 2, 3, 9, 10 and 14, which all relate to training and are marked as to be included within the induction plan. In terms of ongoing stuff, we've got points 5, 6, 8, 13, 16, 17, 19 and 20, which all relate to meeting protocol or reporting from overview and scrutiny or the other way around and are ongoing as it stands. We need processes to be better developed and implemented by hopefully the new scrutiny officer once they're appointed. And I've got 3 items to be commenced. 1, a definition of what this committee is for, which will be picked up outside the meeting. Point 7, which is regards for meeting protocols for questioning, and point 11 on task and finish groups, which will commence once we have some topics for consideration. I hope that's sort of given a bit of an overview of where we're at with the LGA peer review. Obviously, more will happen when we get our new scrutiny officer, hopefully in place in February, March time this year. But happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, James. Any questions for James? Councillor Munster.
Thank you, Chair. just two questions. The first is the call to account on Harkness Court that we engaged in. I think it was in November or early December. It already seems like a lifetime ago. I was just wondering, when can we expect the chair's report to be brought forward for that? If that was discussed at the start, I do apologise.
No, it's the next meeting.
Oh, it's the next meeting. Fantastic. And then it was before I was a member of this committee, but nonetheless, I think it is still important because I believe we had a call to account on the Lord Lister Hotel and the situation there. And I'm just wondering, quite a period of time has elapsed since that call to account took place. I was wondering, when are we going to see the report brought forward for that?
Next meeting.
Next meeting. Marvellous. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Recommendation 2.1, the committee prioritises topics for inclusion in the work programme attached as Appendix A, and where appropriate determines a high-level form and timing of scrutiny input. 2.2, that the committee, having considered the most recent iteration of the forward plan, is attached to Appendix B, suggests a list of items to be considered at its meetings the coming civic year. 2.3, the Corporate Peer Challenge Action Plan is attached as Appendix C, be considered. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Wright Mason has proposed it. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Griffiths seconded it. Should we go to debate? Should we go to the vote? You know?
Chair, that motion is carried.
Thank you. So that concludes the business for this evening's meeting. I will close the meeting at 21:07. The next overview and scrutiny meeting is scheduled on Monday, the 29th of January. Okay, on Monday. All right, thank you very much.